You gonna ask a black man for his ID after everything Starbucks just went through? Didn't y'all just have diversity training? Like, what's up? And she goes, I'm black. Yes, I need to see something.
This is No Excuses with Jon Taffer.
Okay, I want to tell everybody a story. About 8-10 months ago, I was shooting a pilot for Paramount Network, which I won't tell anybody the name. You remember that, Owen?
That was fun as hell. Yeah.
And it had another big celebrity on it, and the show wasn't picked up. And I'll be honest with you, the show sort of sucked. The only great part of the show was you and I. And I have my friend Owen Smith with me here, who's a great comedian, and I'll tell everybody more about you in a second.
Wow.
But every once in a while, you meet somebody you just connect with. And we sat down. We never knew each other.
Yeah.
Turned on the camera.
Yeah.
And had a great conversation.
Yeah, man.
And in about 15, 20 minutes, man, I felt like I knew you my whole life.
I know. It was like kindred spirits. I left going, man, I like Jon.
So Owen is sitting next to me, by the way, in his Notre Dame shirt.
I got to wear it, man.
Yep. So you expect him to be playing football, but he's a comedian. So
That's
we'll
right.
talk about that in a minute. So
Yes.
I want everybody to know your story because you were in a horror movie, wrote 90 episodes of Are We There Yet?
Yes.
I think 16 episodes of Whitney
Yeah, 16 or 17, yeah.
as a writer.
Yeah, right.
And it's interesting that you're a black guy from the Bahamas writing about a white couple from Chicago and Whitney, but you nailed it. and it's just interesting how relatable you become.
Yeah.
And then the things that you're working on today. But you've done a lot of great stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
And your story is amazing to me.
Yeah. Born in the Bahamas.
So you were born in the Bahamas?
Nassau, Bahamas. Yeah, very proud of that.
One of my favorite
since
places.
The high forehead and the light eyebrows.
So how old were you when you came to the States?
I was 9 months old. It's an amazing story that I'm still kind of piecing together. But my mom, left my dad, and because he just wasn't ready to be a committed, man at that time. And my mom, I don't know if I was, but so we went to Washington, D.C. She moved in with her sister, one of her sisters.
She moved from Bahamas straight to D.C.?
Yeah, to Washington, D.C. in Southeast, or we say Southeast. That's how we pronounce it.
Yep.
So I was raised in Prince George's County, Maryland. Then she moved into an apartment complex called Pembroke Apartments, which was right outside of the Washington, D.C. line. And at that time in the 70s, I'm projecting this part, but you could still discriminate on single moms because they didn't have dual incomes.
Yep.
So I grew up in a neighborhood, a bunch of boys all being raised by single mothers. But I didn't realize that. You see what I'm saying? So we didn't see a dad until, occasionally somebody's dad would come in and we'd look at him like an alien, like, who's that man?
So was it a pretty wild group?
Pretty wild group. We were all giving each other bad advice. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have any reference points on how to get women or anything because we were just learning it from one another. And it was a fun time to grow up, though. Like, one of my friends is a successful musician. Everyone was so talented. We would all – it's back in the day when you would run outside and play. And this is what informed, a lot of me growing up in Maryland. But I still stuck out because it was an all-black neighborhood. But occasionally someone would go, where you from? And I'm like, I'm from here. No, I'm like, where you from? And I would go, from the Bahamas. I had a lisp. From the Bahamas. And I go, you Bahamanian, man? And people would start teasing me. And it was from that teasing that I started to tease back. And I was good at it. And I became really good at it that people would go, hey, man, Owen, get him for me. And
So you were what age now about?
When I started teasing people back, probably about 7, 8. And then Eddie Murphy Delirious happened at 9.
So was there a day when you said to yourself, wow, I'm pretty freaking funny?
My mom actually... My mom is a very polished. She reads etiquette books. She's big on sit up straight, tuck your shirt
proper,
in, very proper. But occasionally she'll snap out of that and just say something extremely real. So a lot of her stuff is always you're right down the middle. She's a great mediator. But so one day I came home crying. I was like, Mom, they keep teasing me at school. And she goes, if they make fun of you, you make fun of them right back. Like just like a quick. I was like, that's all I needed. So then I had permission to do it. So I started making fun of the kids back. But it was more like and then I would start making fun of myself first. And it just kind of became my way of walking through life. And everyone felt comfortable around me. Then I would just make people laugh. And I would whisper in other people's ear, yo, say this about him. Like I was.
So I was very much like that.
You were?
I was a sort of the group leaderish.
Yeah.
I was always the jokester, the sarcastic.
Yeah.
You know, I was always back then. We used to say, "Psych him out."
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Mess with his head and stuff.
Yes.
I was always that way. And I look back at it now, and I think to myself, those were the years we built confidence.
That's it.
You had the courage to say things that might insult them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You had to be creative. You had to think.
Yes.
You had to put yourself on thin ice a little bit.
Yeah. And you learn the line early.
Yeah.
So now doing stand-up, I can look at a person and I can tell how far I can go. You know what I mean? It's like this. I know what I can and can't talk about, but they'll still feel a part of the show and not feel like, why did I come out? You know
if nobody's ever seen you, you're a freaking natural, man.
Thanks, man.
You are just a naturally funny guy.
Thank
I used to be good friends with Buddy Hackett many years ago.
Yeah.
And I was on the board of Buddy's charity, and he and I were very close. He was naturally funny. You are naturally funny.
Thank you.
No, you are.
I need to hear that, man. It's good. Yeah.
No, there's something about you that, you can tell a pretty straight story in a pretty darn funny way. No, it's true.
I enjoy doing that.
Okay, so you're 8, 9 years old.
9 years old.
And you realize you're good at this.
Yeah, it's basically a survival mechanism,
it's how you make yourself relevant at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and then that's how you get girls to smile at
Yep.
you. You're so crazy. You're so silly. They start touching you like, And then at 9, Eddie Murphy released this comedy special on HBO called Delirious.
Change the world.
Changed the world. And at that time, and I was very observant. I'm an only child, so I just would always
me
just
too.
watch people. Yeah, so I wouldn't know, and so, and I had my mom would send me, I went to a private school, and I would stay with this babysitter until my mom got off work, and she would pick us up. And every now and then, I guess if my mom would go on a date, I would spend the night at the babysitter's.
Gotcha.
So I'm spending the night. Everything lines up. I'm spending the night on the night that Eddie Murphy's HBO Delirious comes out. This babysitter has HBO. We don't have HBO. It comes on, and he comes on, and he starts, cursing, but doing his thing, and they were like crying, but they would turn the channel every time he would curse. Like, ooh, Lord, y'all don't need to hear this. Y'all kids can't. Ooh, Lord. Maybe he stopped cussing. Let's turn back. And then he started cussing again, but they laughing. But I never forgot that. My aunt, who lived in D.C., had HBO.
It was a freak that you were at her house that night, and that was night. On.
And I go, what is this? Because I related to him. He was a man with similar skin complexion.
Yep.
And she said, he's a comedian. And at that moment, I was like, that's what I do. I make people laugh like that. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Did you feel as almost watching that as a little boy as almost as if he owned the world at that moment?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was just, and I think also not seeing older male figures just walking through life, just seeing what a man is just deciding to do with
just by
life.
Himself with a microphone.
Yeah, up there, just making people laugh. And I was like, I didn't really understand some of the jokes, but I understood the feeling, and I do that. I make people laugh. That's that exact same way. I make that babysitter laugh just like that every day. So
and he was very much about regular life. A lot of his jokes and humor was just about his day and his time. And, right.
And he looked at me and he approached it from like a childlike space, which is why it probably resonated with me as a 9-year-old. Because it was very inquisitive, not coming from the other end of this is how things are. He was like, why is it people, So,
Right.
And so I told my aunt, Sissy, her name's Cicely, but we called her Aunt Sissy. I said, I told her, I lied. I said, I need to watch something for school. And it's on HBO. And so I need to spend the night at your house. And I looked up on the schedule when it came out. And so then I was able to spend the night, and I couldn't sleep. It was like Christmas morning, man.
So you watched it a second time?
I sit on the couch. It comes on. That's when HBO had the staticky start, and then it would start. Then the special comes on. And then my Aunt Sissy comes out of the bedroom and sits next to me on the couch and hears all the cursing. And as he's getting into it, and she just turns to me and she goes, "Don't tell your mother here." And just goes back to bed. And I absorbed it, man. And I remembered every joke, every bit. And so, but I never told anyone that I wanted to be a comedian because I didn't want anyone to crush my dream.
Right, laugh at it.
Yeah, I didn't grow up in the most positive environment when people are like, you can do that. I'm going to take you to, hey, let's go to a comedy club.
Right. Versus you're freaking crazy, man.
Yeah, you crazy. You ain't
go get a
that.
job.
Yeah, they ain't going to let you do that. So I would just make people, I was more aware of when I was making people laugh. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm being a comedian right now. But I called it comedianing. I said, I'm comedianing right now because I didn't know the term.
With your buddies on the street, no fathers, hanging out, being a little sarcastic and funny.
Yeah.
You still were a good student the whole time, weren't you?
Because I knew that was the way I could do everything else. You know what I mean? It was, and I'm competitive. You know, I didn't want to, and I like organically knew, because I'm a father now, and I keep telling my wife that I organically knew what would make my mom feel good. You know what I mean? So I really worked hard to get those good grades. And when I got A's, she was cool, you know what I mean? And I could push the boundaries a little bit. But if I was bringing home C's and D's and, you know, misbehaving, then that would just, so something in me.
So did she like your comedy when you were young and sarcastic and funny?
My mom was she would not laugh. She would be like, But I know she would laugh like after I left, but she would not give it to me. Every now and then, today, I have her howling. And her laugh, she has the most beautiful laugh. And so, but as a kid, no, she just didn't feel like she could give it to me.
So this was just really important to you, and you think about how Pryor touched you so deeply.
Yeah, it was Murphy first. I didn't discover Pryor until I was in my mid-20s.
How Eddie Murphy so touched you. And you know what's amazing is when you think about it as an entertainer, and I've watched a lot of your stuff, and if nobody's watched Owen, there's great videos on YouTube. You know, some really, really good work. Please do so, Owen Smith at YouTube. Yeah. But I got to tell you, as an entertainer, when you can touch someone and change their life, man, it gets no better.
It's no better. And that's something.
And Eddie did that to you.
Yeah, he did that. He did that.
Think about this.
Yeah.
You might be doing that for somebody else.
I know. I'm more aware of that today than, you know how it is. In your 20s, you're just kind of going through it, trying to find out who you are. And then in your 30s, you start going, well, why didn't I get that opportunity? I'm just as funny as that person. Or I make people laugh like. So you're still in that space. But then in the last couple of years, I've gotten to this space where, man, what I do is important, you know? And it
Very
can,
important.
especially like with all that's going on. And it's something about, not to get all heady, but it's something about like right now, in the last couple of years, this has been this big thing about meditating and yoga, basically trying to live in the present, you know, and people do all these things to feel present, whether it's, you know, drugs and alcohol or whatever, or if they try to do, you know, Zen things. But at a comedy club, laughter is the most present thing you can do. And so on a nightly basis, I think that's what we all connect on, is that we're all laughing at a thought or an experience at the same time.
It's homogeneous.
And that's
it's like a sports team in a sense.
Yeah, yes. And that's
every group in the world can love that same team. There's no difference.
No difference.
When so-and-so hits a home run.
It's a home run. That's
We're all in there together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so
there was a movie I saw years ago, and you'd love it. It's called The Ghosts of Flatbush.
Oh, wow.
And you can get it online. It's a documentary film, and it's a film about when the Brooklyn Dodgers were moved out of Brooklyn and how everybody lost this homogeneous connection that they had and how the whole community fell apart because that commonality disappeared. When I'm at your show and everybody's laughing, we are all laughing at the same thing.
All laughing at the same thing.
It's one of the most unified moments I guess we could ever have.
It's fantastic. And it's like, and then
I never looked at it that way.
Yeah, and as a performer, it's like I have the responsibility to decide what I want us to laugh at together. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's where, like, you see, like, a lot of my peers starting to get in trouble with some things or whatever. It's like, because we don't look at it that way. Right. And then you go, oh, wow, you know.
So let's move on. It's okay. She go to Notre Dame.
I did, yeah. Graduated from Notre Dame.
What'd you take? What were you?
Finance, and I studied Japanese for 2 years.
Okay, so so this is a pretty complex dude here. Okay, Japanese, accounting, and comedy.
Japanese finance and comedy. And I was doing comedy, yeah.
Wow. So do you do Japanese jokes?
Man, no. But if I'm in a sushi restaurant, though, I will say something that will make them go, how'd you learn that?
You know, it's funny. It's really strange when you travel around the world.
Yeah.
And you see people who look like one thing but are another. For example, when you see somebody Japanese but they have a British accent.
Yes.
Right?
Like,
right, completely. You almost can't get past it for a long time. Moments like that are very bizarre to me. Or you meet somebody who's Indian.
Yes.
But they have a Japanese accent.
Or deep like R&B voice. How you doing? You're like, yo, where you get that voice from? Yeah, I love that stuff.
So when was the first time you were on stage?
First time I was on stage, I was 19 years old. It was the summer
after
you're
at
my
Notre
freshman
Dame?
year. I'm at Notre Dame, but I'm home for the summer.
Okay.
And I had a government job. I was working at the Department of Energy for like
Summer job.
Summer job. And shout out to Wanda Jones for hooking that up. And every lunch break, I would just make everybody laugh. And I loved it. I just loved, because my mom worked for the government, and in every holiday dinner you hear how they just would always just complain about their gigs, and so I just organically I was making all these people laugh, and it just sounded. And this big guy named Kevin, he walked over to me one day and he had this serious face. He goes, "Man, you funny." And I thought he was going to like. Then his next sentence was, "I'm gonna take you to a comedy club. They got this open mic night." I was like, "All right." And in true DMV fashion, he goes, "Pick me up at my house." I thought you were taking me. So I had to go into D.C. to pick up Kevin, and then we drove to this comedy club in Greenbelt, Maryland, called the Comedy Connection of Greenbelt. And out in front was a huge poster of Martin Lawrence, who's from Maryland. Of
course.
Another huge poster of Dave Chappelle, who's
a little
from
intimidating on the way in
for
a young kid.
Yeah, for a young kid, 19. And I got there at 8 o'clock, which is what time it was supposed to start. No one was there, and I signed up first on the sign-up list, and then the show started about 9:15. It's a black room, and then I'm in the back nervous, man. I got the bubble guts, and this is right near the end of the comedy boom, where now they have to offer like a buffet to eat, and they kind of paper the rooms.
Okay, hold that for a second.
Yes.
So before, are you writing your material? You're studying? You're working?
I had.
So it was a big deal to you.
I didn't really know like how to approach the craft. But I did write down, like, I had like a couple of jokes.
Okay, so you thought you were ready?
I thought I was ready, and they were pretty observational jokes about the Power Rangers beginning and why the Black Power Rangers move was a dance move. And then I expounded on, like, if I got into a fight with a real guy and I was there for, so I was like, okay, I was pretty happy with that. And I can't remember what else I did. But he didn't call my name. So I sat there the whole night through, through all these comedians, and I didn't get called. And so I was upset. The competitive nature in me kicked in, and I went home, and I came back the following week, and I signed my name up all over the page, like on 3 different. He doesn't call my name again.
Wow.
Shout out to Chris Paul. His name's Chris Paul. And so I got the courage to go up to him after the sorry about this. Yeah, I got the courage to go up to him after at the end of that show. And I said, "Hey, man," and I didn't know how this worked. I didn't know, and everyone was an intimidating figure to me at that point. And I go, "Hey, man, I've been coming here the last 2 times, and I signed up, and you didn't call my name." He goes, "What's your name?" I go, "Owen." He goes, "Oh, I just didn't know you. Come back next week." It was that simple. It was like my first lesson in show business. Like,
that's all it took.
So you know.
That's right.
Come back
to this
next
day,
week.
same thing.
To this day, come back next week, sign up. And he calls me up. I'm the first comic he calls up because, again, he doesn't know me, so you go up in the first slot in case this guy's no good. And I do my act, and I was talking so fast. And the audience, I just remember them looking up at me like this. And, like, they would laugh a few times. But I didn't bomb. I didn't get booed or anything. They were just like, and then when I said goodnight, they were like, all right. And when I got off stage, all these comedians, and it's something that they do in the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area. It's called the DMV. When you come off stage, all the other comedians applaud you. Like, they come over and they say, "Good job."
That's class.
It's almost like teammates on the bench. Like, we all know we're about to go. I never experienced that anywhere else in any other comedy community.
That's cool.
So, but coming off stage the first time experiencing that, I was like, I'm home. Like, this is amazing. And they were all giving me pointers. You were funny. First thing, slow down. Ooh, this joke is good. You can expand on that. And it was all black men telling me this, so it goes back to, just
to Eddie.
I was like, oh, this is great. And so, because the only time I would have interactions with other black dudes was on the basketball court in some sporting capacity. And the only time, in my area, the only time they would speak to you is after you did a good play. Like, if you dunked or something, they'd be like, "Hey, man, who you play for?" But the whole time, they wouldn't say anything to you.
Okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
So you finish the show.
Finish the show.
You get your high fives from all the guys.
Yeah.
You get great words of encouragement.
Yeah.
You feel that you're onto something.
Let me tell you what happened.
You walk out of the comedy club.
Mm-hmm.
You get in your car.
Yeah.
What did you do when you got in that car?
I was like, man, I was crazy. I was like screaming.
You
like,
freaked.
Ah! Yeah, it was great.
I've had those moments too. So, a great reflective moment alone.
Yeah.
Was that one of the greatest rushes of your life?
Ever, because it was something that, and that's the power of the mind, I guess. It was something that I said I was going to do at 9, and at 19, a guy comes over to me and says, "You belong in a comedy club. I'm like, wow, I've been putting that out for 10 years.
I'm one of them. Wow, I'm in.
Yes. And this one guy, shout out to Mike Brooks. So as open mic nights, they put the more seasoned comedians at the end. And one of the more seasoned comedians goes up is a guy I went to school with in the 8th grade.
Back to that group.
And I go to him, hey, man, we went to Francis Scott Key. He was like, what's up, young? And so he showed me around the comedy scene that summer. So that summer, my goal was to get paid telling jokes.
Right.
Because I believed if you got paid, you were a professional.
So you could make people laugh. Now the issue is, can you make money making people laugh?
Yeah. So we were doing all these rooms called like cabarets. They were basically rooms that weren't set up for comedy.
Yep.
And a comedy show would break out and people would be eating their crab legs and they'd have to careen their neck over and like look at you. And sometimes they laugh. But you're always competing with food or whatever.
And waitresses are running back and forth, and
All
it's
that,
really disrupted.
No, lighting is poor.
Oh, it's like the most unfriendly comedy environment you could have.
Unfriendly. And so
10 distractions going on while you're up there.
Oh yeah, and so if you got one laugh, you were like, okay, it might be something there. They were not expecting this at all, and so, but that made me a stronger performer. And by the end of the summer, shout out to this guy named Pops. He gave me a crumpled up $25 in my hand. Boom.
Wow. And you didn't expect it?
No, and I was like, oh, I'm professional. I'm paid. So then I went back to school sophomore year. My confidence on 10 because I was like, if I can make people in D.C. laugh. South Bend, Indiana, man.
That should be a piece of cake, man. Right.
Yeah, I was all like, and so I entered the talent show and I did stand-up. And now I have video of that. And I got a standing ovation at the end. I broke like 3 mics, whatever, but I was home, and I became I would do comedy shows on campus and I ended up hosting like all these things. Then in the 10,000 hours of it all, a comedy club opens in South Bend, the Funny Bone. So I go to summer school that summer to work that Funny Bone, and I become the doorman, and I just beg the owner to let me go on stage, and then I go on stage, and he makes me the house MC. Wow. So my junior year, I'm performing Tuesday through Sunday every week as the house MC. I would seat you, then I would get on stage and tell my jokes, and then I would also go to school. So
did you have to run in the back and cook the burger in the middle of the set as well?
I could have. I got that experience, but I didn't. And that was how I learned. I would see so many different ways of doing the craft come through all these national headliners.
It's interesting that you say craft.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you're a naturally funny guy. Mm-hmm. I'm a pretty good TV host.
Yes.
And I think that being a television host is about 20-30% talent, 70% craft.
Yeah.
How would you define comedy?
Wow, I would say this. In a raw comedy club when there are no cameras on you, you can just be organically funny and survive. But if you're going to shoot a special or do something for television, you do need to get we call it like technicals. You need to get your technique up, your craft. Yeah. And so I would say it's almost 50-50, man. But you can't make it be over technical to where people are like, this feels right. Now you start to go into humorous because you're just so it has to still come out organically. But like when I watch the greats, they know what they're doing, man. Like
it's a craft.
It's a craft.
It takes a lot of experience.
So many things.
When you're in college now, you're doing how many shows a year?
I know, right? I never looked at it like that. Every week. So in college, what was that? September through December, every week pretty much, and then.
So you're doing 50, 60, 80, 90 shows.
More than that.
You're getting your chops.
Getting my chops, yeah.
You're learning what's working. You're discarding material. You're creating new material.
Yes.
You're getting good.
Getting good. Yeah, and I learned how to perform in D.C. because, again, when people aren't paying attention to comedy, you learn how to, like, use your body and do all these things and be physical.
Get their attention.
Yeah, and then, but in South Bend, because the audience was mainly, I would say, like a blue-collar working class crowd who did not share the same reference points that I had to learn how to expand my material and talk about other things and read the paper and do things of that nature and I would learn, and I learned more about the human condition through listening to other comedians. Like I know more about different cultures and ethnicities because comics were telling their story. Right. So when I'm just sitting around,
it's always personal, isn't it?
It's so personal, and I would just know all these things, and my wife would be like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "Comedy." This one comedian used to talk about it, and then I would.
You know what I find interesting?
Yeah.
When I ran the Troubadour many years ago.
Yeah.
I knew the managers of the Comedy Store, and they said to me, "Jon, you are so funny. Come do 5-7 minutes at the Comedy Store."
Wow.
Now, I was a musician at the time, so
Okay.
I played the drums, and I used to play at the Troubadour and the Roxy and stuff. But I could hide behind my drum set when I was on stage, if you know what I mean. So now I'm standing on stage at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard with a microphone and a spotlight.
Wow.
And I did okay for 5 minutes, but I got to tell you, it was the most terrifying 5 minutes of my life. I could do reality TV all day long, and I'm cool and comfortable in that.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, standing there just by yourself, it's like you're naked.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
You telling me you're a drummer, that I get it now. The fact that you're a drummer, like you walk through life with this rhythm that makes people like, who's that guy? Like Michael Chiklis is also a drummer.
Yeah.
And I feel like you just have this natural sense of timing and rhythm, and like in everything you do that you may not even know, but that's what it is, man. It's that drumming.
You know why I think I'm successful?
Why?
I own the only patent ever issued by the federal government for the management of music to achieve a desired ambiance in a hospitality property. I'm a freaking nutcase. Wow. I took 70,000 songs and paid people to put them in energy levels, music types, instrumentation categories, and I learned the science in a nightclub of beats per minute.
Whoa.
And if I go too fast, I burn you out, you leave early. If I go too slow, I bore you, you leave early.
Right.
And there's this equation and this mentality, if you will, to the human condition and driving energy and giving a little break and driving energy and giving a break. And I think what you're saying is really astute. I think those things have helped me on camera with timing and stuff.
Definitely that. And you know who else is successful? Magicians.
Oh, yeah.
Magicians make amazing hosts, and I would say or just amazing artists because they aren't pressured for the laugh. They know, the prestige. They know they have something.
We also
coming.
Appreciate time. We don't have to hurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? When you were a rookie, you were inclined to hurry up.
Yeah. But I'm going to get them and you know how to speed it up. Like,
so, okay.
It is, man.
You leave college.
Yes.
You got your degrees.
Got my degree. Yeah.
Speaking a little Japanese?
A little bit.
Ready for a little finance work?
No.
But you got your comedy chops.
I got a degree for moms. Here you go.
But you got your comedy chops.
Got my comedy chops. I'm ready.
So how were you scared about launching your career then? Were you confident?
Not at all. I had that youthful, blind confidence. It was just something that I knew that this was going to happen.
So year one, did you make a living?
Yeah. I wrote a TV pilot about it. I worked for 11 months as a financial planner, which is fancy talk for life insurance agent. Yeah. They hired me to sell life insurance to 21-year-old minorities that's the last group that's thinking of buying life insurance. So I was kicked out of pretty much every home in Chicago. And I wasn't really great at it because I didn't really fully believe in how they had us do it. Like I believed in everything I believed in, I didn't make a commission off of. The thing I made a commission off of, I was like, hey, you don't really
Right, didn't excite you.
Yeah, it didn't excite me. So I was doing that in comedy at night. And so I would be on the road doing appointments, and I learned how to be, all my appointments would keep because I would be funny and charming on the phone. And
So you're cold calling.
I was cold calling, man. And I was like, hey, which time works best for you, 11 and 1, as opposed to, and so I would always get meetings and people would always, so I had a great retention rate for that. But I wasn't really converting in sales because it was also like, this isn't my life. And the comedy clubs were cool because they would literally let me sleep in the back. And to this day, if you call my name, I can wake up and I would go right on stage,
and you
sleep creases, and hey, what's up, and just and do my show. And so I heard comedians talking about how they were living off of unemployment. And I was like, you could do that? They were like, yeah, man, I live off unemployment. And then I do the thing. So I went back to my job and quit that day. And back then they had unemployment offices, and I went to the unemployment office. And I go, yeah, I'd like to start collecting unemployment. And the guy goes, were you fired, or were you, or did you quit? And I was astute enough to go, what's the difference? He goes, well, if you quit, you're not eligible for unemployment. And I was like, I was laid off, because that was like a big thing, like. And he goes, we have ways of finding out. I go, I'll be right back. And I literally went back to my ex-job.
They verify with the employer.
I went back to my ex-job, and I asked my employer, hey, man, could you fire me so I can collect unemployment insurance? And he thought that was the craziest request that he actually did it. But I never collected a day of unemployment because I ended up temping. I would do temp work because I could type. and I would do temp work. And
so you would really do things that you had no enjoyment doing.
No enjoyment doing.
Just to feed your ability to do your comedy.
Yeah, because I knew it would lead to. And so I'm temping.
But you realize the entrepreneurial spirit that is.
I always had that.
Yeah.
Always had that. Yeah, I sold candy in high school. I used to wash. Before that, I would wash and wax cars in the neighborhood to make some bucks.
So you're a disciplined guy. You've always been.
Yeah, my wife says I can go all in, and I'm very detailed oriented. Like I love to cook and things of that nature. If I start something, I want to finish it and make it right.
So now college is over. You're touring. You're on the road. You're doing comedy.
Road comic, yeah, performing 48 weeks a year.
Wow,
yeah.
You're making a decent living.
Making a great living. Then I discovered colleges and fell into commercials. Started acting.
Now, young comics don't make a lot of money every night, but you work a lot of nights.
Yeah.
So you can wind up making a lot of living, and then as you get better, your fee per night goes up.
Yeah.
And it starts to work really well. But in the beginning, it's a heck of a grind.
It's a heck of a grind.
You're just in places that you'd probably never want to go back to if you didn't have to.
Yeah, it's a young man's game. I didn't really need much. And, but I've been to every state except Montana.
So now you're a young comedian. Do you have an agent yet?
No.
So now you're struggling, and did you ever think of yourself as being an actor?
No.
So you were just a stand-up guy. You were happy being a stand-up guy. And then how did When a Stranger Calls happen?
Long story short, I'm at Zany's Comedy Club. Shout out to Zany's in downtown Chicago. And can I tell this story real quick?
Sure.
Just for young comics watching this. So in Chicago at that time, there were two comedy clubs. Zany's was the mainstream comedy club, and then there was a black comedy club called All Jokes Aside. I was able to work both.
That was Bob Zany's, right?
No. I don't know what the first name. It's just called Zany. Yeah. So there was a booker named Bert Haas, and he would let you showcase. You had to go ask him for a showcase date, and I said, "Hey, Bert, I'd like to showcase for your club." He goes, "All right, you do 7 minutes clean, and I have a spot for you in July." Now, mind you, it was October when I asked him for a showcase date, and he goes, July. And so, but I knew he stood outside every Tuesday. So every Tuesday, I would find a way to make myself available, just show up and say, "Hey, Bert, how you doing?" He would always just go, "July."
Wow.
Every Tuesday until, "Hey, Bert, in July." Like every Tuesday.
Did he ever break down?
Never broke, but I never didn't show. Like I showed every Tuesday. And so then when it was my time to do it, I did it, and I got passed into that club. So I would hear other comedians go, "Man, forget that club. They this, they that." But I was like, dude, I went every Tuesday for 10 months. Yeah.
You paid your dues.
And so
you really put a lot of ego aside in those days, didn't you?
Yeah. And I still am reminded. I think that's thanks to my mom.
You're a pretty humble dude. Yeah,
and I mean that could be to my detriment too, because sometimes I do need to speak up and be like, "Do you know my resume?" But I'm just like,
right,
But they, so yeah, I was doing that. So what was the question I was answering?
So how did that happen? Was that a phone call?
No, I'm at Zany's and Star Searched the guy who won the
and
model.
McMahon.
Yeah, the guy who won. He was the model. He wanted to do comedy. So he comes into the comedy club, and Bert Haas says, "Hey man, I gotta bump your spot, which means you're not going up.
You're out.
We're gonna have the Star Search winner perform." This guy walks in with an entourage of people, and I'm sitting in the back of the club like, "Man, what is?" Because I'm upset I'm not gonna go up.
Yep.
They introduce this guy. He is amazing looking, not funny, couldn't buy a laugh. Like it was just really weird. And Bert panicked. Where's Owen? You go up next." So I got to go up right after him.
Get the room back for me.
Like I killed. And when I got off stage in Chicago, this agent named Nancy Apt goes, "Do you have who are you? Do you have representation?" And gives me her card. So that Hollywood story, it happened to me in Chicago. I get her card. I go back to the other comics. I go, "Y'all heard of this?" I go, "But that's the top agency in Chicago. You should." So I didn't want to, just go there unprepared. So I took a acting class, and the only one I could get in at that time immediately was a commercial acting class at I forget the name of it. It'll come to me. It was on La Brea and
Lee Strasberg.
No, it wasn't. No, it was a commercial acting, and they were great though. But in that class, they give everyone the same script, and you see everyone perform. And these are people who are like, everyone tells their story like, yeah, I've been wanting to act, so I've studied here, I've studied there. Like people with resumes, but my agent says I should do commercials as well. Like just people who had great posture and just did all the voice exercise, all that stuff. And,
don't you hate some of those people? I mean, just between you and I,
little pretentious.
That little Hollywood style.
Yeah. And they've taken elocution class. Like they know all this stuff. And
many years ago, I had a roommate, and I lived in Hollywood, and this guy tried out for the role Popeye, the movie Popeye.
Oh wow.
And for 3 freaking weeks, this guy lived in my apartment, and he was Popeye.
Wow.
And I was ready to rip his freaking eyes out. I bought a neon sign and I put it over my fireplace that said "No actors allowed."
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'll watch all these trained people perform these scripts, and something just came over and I go, "That's it? I could do this." Yeah. And so I was kind of a natural in that space, and my confidence, I felt confident. Like immediately, I booked a national commercial.
You're not worried about your own material. You're reading their words.
Yeah.
They're setting up the timing. If you screw it up, you can do it again.
Yeah.
Scripted work is pretty darn easy compared to live work.
Yeah.
I feel that way about my show.
Yeah.
I got to write my own words in real time, do what I do, go where I'm going. Man. I produce it in real time, handle the story in real time. Yeah. None of it is pre-produced.
Amazing.
So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's a very stressful situation.
It was refreshing because it was a different way. It was like it was all about making a choice. So I would just go on instinct. How did this piece hit me? I feel like it should be delivered this way, and then they would help me with the technicals of it. So I organically would always kind of be in the right space. So I booked a commercial, national. Back then they paid well, like $50,000.
So was the commercial before the movie? Before When a Stranger Calls?
But the director of When a Stranger Calls directed one of the commercials I did for
Bingo.
a local cell phone company. And it
So
was
how
probably
long?
one of the experiences that you and I had on the pilot. Like we really had a ball. I completely forgot about it.
How long did it take you from the minute you had that copy of that commercial to the time your mother saw it?
Oh, she saw it immediately.
Yeah, I bet.
She saw it, and it was like, she was starting to
come around.
You know who helped me? Bernie Mac helped me with my mom.
Sad story.
Yeah, R.I.P. Bernie, because my mom came out to visit, and Bernie Mac he wanted to be Bob Hope. A lot of people don't know that. So he had a room called Miltroneers. It was in a tiny club in downtown Chicago, and every Tuesday he would say, "Get your yucks for $5,"
Wow.
And it would always be packed. Always be packed.
He was a great guy.
On a small stage like the size of this studio, it would be Bernie, a full band. He would have the macaroni dancers. And Bernie would come out and do 45 minutes of new material every Tuesday written by him and Ali LeRoi. Right. And then Bernie
he was a special talent.
Special. And he would bring up 2 comedians and 2 singers. And I became one of his favorite me, Dion Cole, a bunch of cats, Corey Holcomb, like a bunch of amazing comedians from that time in Chicago.
It was almost like a second city of its own in a sense.
Yeah. And then so my mom came to one of those shows, and afterwards Bernie would always talk to his band and give them tips and notes and critiques on performance and talk to his dancers. He was a consummate professional, and instead of doing that, he spent that time talking to my mom. He talked to my mom for over an hour, and after that she went from being hesitant to becoming my biggest supporter.
Wow.
Like she understood, and she would, "Are you making your calls? Are you doing your thing?" And I'm forever grateful to Bernie for doing that.
Okay, so now we're sitting at about 2011, and you're brought on board as a writer.
Yeah.
For Are We There Yet?
And I was Ali LeRoi.
Same.
It's the guy who he saw me at a comic club, brought me to Bernie Mac's room. Ali LeRoi then wrote on Everybody Hates Chris, brought me on there, and I started doing punch-up writing there, and that's where I got my master's degree.
So is punch-up writing taking a script and adding some pops to it?
Yeah,
in essence.
But it's really it was almost not. They didn't bring me in for that. My job was to read Chris Rock's off-camera voiceover for the actors to have timing, because it was a voiceover show. So I'm like,
Gotcha.
My mother said,
Gotcha.
I would do that. But it was the perfect acting school. Because in acting class, it's always in a protected environment, a safe environment. Everyone is there learning. But on set is a different beast. There's so much stuff going on, and you still have to find this moment while the lighting dude is wrapping up a cord and they adjusting stuff. And people on calls, and you can see all these movements. So
but you still got to keep your shit together.
Yeah, and to be able to to learn how other actors approach their craft. So to see how a treasure like Tashina Arnold would approach her craft. This was Terry Crews's like first big show. So to see how he approached his craft like a football player, he would just. And so they had two different techniques, and it was just fun. And so what I did is this wasn't in my job description, but I offered myself to run lines with whoever wanted to run lines. And so that was how I got to know all these people, and I would run lines. So they would have, because when you're on set, it's all about timing.
Yep.
And because we were doing a single camera show, we didn't want to lose light. So I thought if I could run lines, then when you're on set, you'll nail it in the first or second take. You won't have to find it.
All right.
And so I would do that with guest stars. So I saw you have a picture of Whoopi. I have a picture with Whoopi because she did the show.
Whoopi's my buddy.
Yes. And so when we would do that, I would also find jokes, and I would hear how you would deliver it and how everyone speaks and what words can come out your mouth a certain way, and I would just write it down. And one day,
so the master of inflection.
Yes,
sort of.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And so one day, Ali LeRoi, the showrunner and co-creator, asked me, "Hey man, this scene's not working. Do you have anything?" I was like, "Do I?" And I had like a list of jokes, and he laughs with his body, and he would read it, and he started laughing. He threw it in. They reset. Tashina did the take with my joke. The whole crew laughed. And then that's the day Chris Rock showed up. He was like, "Forget that. Say this." So he and I battled, but I won the little battle.
And then they retained you as a writer.
They retained me as a punch-up guy. So if ever I had a suggestion, I had free reign to go, hey, maybe this. And 90% of the times again.
No such thing as a bad idea, just a bad choice. Just keep them coming.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's when I learned, and coming from comedy, if he was like, no, it didn't affect me, I was like, okay, I'll just think of something else. And we had a great working relationship, and they got to the place where he would let me, rewrite scenes, but I didn't know that was a big deal. I was just trying to service the project, you know what I mean?
How many people have you met in life that in those moments of people saying, I don't like your idea.
Yeah.
This isn't working. You're missing the mark.
Yeah.
This isn't what I had hoped it would be.
Yeah.
How many people have you seen in our business, because I know my answer to this, I'm curious to hear yours. Yeah. Have you seen blow those moments where the ego takes over and they screw up their jobs, they storm out?
Yeah.
I mean, how often do you see that?
Way more than I could count. And it always surprised me. And I would always go, is it because I'm a comedian and comedians are always harsh on one another that it's like that doesn't affect me? But if you're a writer and all you've wanted to be is a writer, I've seen writers really just lose their stuff and be like, man, what? Man, forget. And like all day talking about that guy, like who does he? And I'm like, it was just a no, man. Just think of something else. Like that joke is great.
My point is your desire for greatness is bigger than your ego.
Yeah, I never looked at it that way.
It's true.
Yeah.
And if your ego is bigger than your desire to greatness, you're screwed.
You're screwed.
And those are the people who blow it.
Yeah.
The ego of this moment
That's real.
Cost me a gig for the year.
Yeah.
In show business, we see this stuff all the time.
All the time.
And I just know, how humble, and what a good guy you are. The other lesson that I learned out of this is it doesn't matter what business you're in. I've been in nightclub and bar business 35 years. Wow. When you're in a business 35 years, all your friends are now presidents of all the companies.
Yeah. It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And as we get older now, our friends are executive producers and
true.
network executives and network. So we're coming up with everybody on that whole food chain, so to speak. Relationships are key.
So key. So key.
And the friend from 5 years ago calls you today, Owen, I got a project. So you've done an incredible job of putting greatness ahead of ego.
Thank you.
You've done a great job in discipline, buddy. Really impressive.
Thanks.
But, I think that what's really fantastic about you is your desire to achieve and to satisfy someone else.
Yeah.
So your comedy show isn't about you. It's really about your audience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What about those comedians that you meet sometimes and it's just so about them?
I honestly, and it's so hard for me to, having a son helps with exercising patience, and it helps me realize, okay, this guy's in his early 20s, and I kind of remember feeling that way, but man, there have been certain situations when, one time I was in a room with Jerry Seinfeld, and funny story, I saw him on HBO, and Bob Costas asked him about young comedians. He was like, hey, my generation, we studied. Young comedians, they don't study. And he did like this double blink and this, you agree? And it made me so upset because that's all I did was study. And I have everyone's stuff. And when I was on the road, I would just listen to everyone's stuff. And like Bill Hicks taught me, he was the first guy I heard make abortion funny, and Franklin Ajay, he was the first black guy I knew not grow up poor. He made humor. He talked about going to law school and, Red Fox for the timing. Like I knew everybody. I listened to all of his heroes, Robert Klein and just
great timing.
So and so for him to say that, I just didn't feel like it was fair. So when I met him for the first time, Jimmy Brogan took me in there. Jimmy Brogan is a Notre Dame alum, super funny cat, and I call him the Kaiser Sose because in this room, whenever he spoke, everyone listened to Brogan, and I still tease him about that. And so he brought me in. He goes, "Hey Jerry, this is Owen." He goes, "Hey, nice to meet you." I go, "Hey man, I got a bone to pick with you, man. I saw you on HBO say young comedians don't study." He's like, "You can't say that, man, because I study. And when you say stuff like that, you have a larger platform. More people are gonna listen to you." And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, have a seat. You want a cigar?" I was like, "Yeah." I sit down. And I looked, Jay Leno sitting right here. I only saw him. It was Leno, it was Kevin Nealon, it was like all these comedy heavyweights sitting in this room, and Jay his knee was shaking. I was saying, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, man. You gotta say what you gotta say. And I was like, I just, But there was another young comedian in there, and he wouldn't shut up. I'm like, you have nothing to add to this experience right now. Like,
problem is, he thinks he does.
He was
That's
trying
the
to
problem.
get them, and I was just like, I wanted to be like, hey man, just listen. Like they were talking about luxury tax problems and talking about their journey, and everyone had swapping stories, and that's the room you want to just be in and listen and just hear and absorb. And
I had the chance to do the Steve Harvey show a few weeks ago.
Oh wow!
And talk about a special dude. I mean, Steve Harvey is just, and he does his own warm up before the show. So before you go out in the show, he goes out there probably a 40-minute warm up too. I mean, he's working hard. He owns them. They're rolling in the aisles. Then you come up and you do the show with them. And during the commercial break, we were talking about how wonderful life is when you're past what you need and you're into what you want.
Oh, man, I can't wait to get there.
And those are the words that he said, and it was really, really powerful. He too is somebody who's had a big influence on me. Okay, so Whitney's a pretty big hit. You come in, you do an episode or two of Blackish.
Mm-hmm. No, I wrote season 4. I wrote on season 4.
Oh, Blackish,
the whole season. Yeah.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So you wrote on Blackish, which I think is a very funny show myself.
Yeah, it's great.
And what are you working on now?
Now I'm in this space where when my wife was pregnant, I created a TV show. It's called Dudes, and it's just I told my wife, and when I was pitching it around town, the whole thing is in relationships there are 3 sides to every story: his side, her side, and the truth. And I feel like today her side is well documented.
Yep. From
Sex in the City to Insecure to Girls to Girlfriends, you pick a show.
So, and what about our side?
So I wanted to do a show about our side, and so I wrote this very funny show, and it went around. Anyone who reads the pilot, because I just wrote the pilot, anyone who reads it, they go, "Why isn't this show on the air?" And so Malcolm Lee signed on to direct, and Warner Brothers loves it, and they became the production company. No, they became the studio attached, and LeBron James's company, Spring Hill, became the production company.
So you got it done.
I got it.
You sold it.
I got sold it. I did sell. So that was the first show I sold, and so now we're trying to find a home, find a network home, because it's one of those things like where I've always been someone who's been a little early. Like in 2014, I'm the first guy to shoot a comedy special entirely on iPhones. I went out, I bought 10 iPhones, I shot the special on the iPhones, and then I returned the iPhones and got my money back.
That's something my wife would do.
Yes,
she
recorded it. Yeah, got 17 grand back, and I thought, this is disruptive, this is funny, and I organic, right? But the industry, the buyers weren't ready to, so I wasn't able to sell it in the way I wanted to sell it. But the best side of that is those jokes, like only a few thousand people have seen it. So now I'm able to repurpose those jokes for other things.
Oh,
and
that's
so,
great.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and jokes are never finished. You just make them better.
And they evolve.
So now I'm doing this show called Laugh Mob Laugh Tracks, and some of this is a brilliant idea. I want to release an entire album like this where you perform, but the jokes are reenacted. And so it's a very specific type of storytelling. It's basically
almost like a crime drama reenactment show.
Funny.
So the comedian is narrating it as that could be hysterical.
People. Yes, and so I
a whole new sitcom format in essence.
It could be, yeah.
Yes.
And so I did one, and it really connected with people. It had people cracking up, and so
I love it.
Yeah, and so I'm doing more of that stuff and
being creative,
and developing that show, and then I've been pitching movies and more TV shows. Like I'm in this space now where I just want to tell like more stories, and my wife and I, like, we're revisiting the stand-up aspect of it all to see if I could take one more swing, because I landed a role as an actor on Sebastian's pilot, the comedian Sebastian Maniscalco, who's having tremendous success touring, but our pilot didn't get picked up. So this pilot season, I'm excited because I have a great agency. So I'm gonna be auditioning for, to be on other people's shows, but I'd like to ideally be able to sell the shows that I'm writing and then star in one of those vehicles as well, So
I'll tell you right now, and there's a lot of people listening to us right now. I'd love to have you on Bar Rescue. I think that'd be fun.
I'd love to do it.
Come do Recon with me for an episode. I think that'd be a blast.
I would be honored.
I'd love to do it with you. We'll make that happen.
All right. Thanks, John.
So, I love you, man. You know that.
Yeah, I know, man. Yeah, same.
I just think that there's something really special about you, man.
Thanks, man.
You know, that you're always moving to the next thing,
to
the next level, to the next project.
Yeah.
You're the epitome of human growth in a lot of ways. And I think what's made you success is your humility, your discipline. A lot of young comics didn't study, but you did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The fact that you built such great relationships.
Yeah.
And, I'm an example. I've only spent a few hours with you in my life, but I'd call you in a heartbeat to do a project.
That'd be great.
No, just because of the relationship.
Yeah.
And, we all need to learn from this. It does take discipline. It takes hundreds of hours and efforts. And Owen always did something. You always showed up.
Always. Yeah.
You showed up for those 50, 60 college dates every year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You showed up at Zany's Tuesday after Tuesday after Tuesday. You always showed up.
Yeah.
Because Owen has no problem investing in Owen.
No, that's my vice. I don't gamble. I don't do any of that stuff, but I will invest in myself, and I keep doing it. It's in my blood.
But aren't you in the end your greatest asset?
Yes. Yeah.
I often ask people this question: why would I invest in someone else before myself?
I know. I was one of the first guys when I lived in Chicago. One of my good friends to this day, his name is Sakaya Sandifer. Shout out to Sakaya. He was doing graphic design for comedians. He was making comedians business cards. And I would look at him, and I was the first guy in Chicago to get an all-color card, like 4-color.
Very good. Very innovative.
Very innovative, and had my picture on it with my number.
Big investment.
Yeah, and people to this day still have my card on their refrigerator. You know what I mean? That number doesn't work anymore, but I would have him design my posters and my one sheets. Once I found out about like the business side, the marketing aspect of it, and we won an award for best.
That's funny.
But it's like one of those things that I do pride myself in. Like if you go on YouTube right now, I just put together a thing called Get to Know Owen Smith in 7 Jokes. It's just a fun.
And that's on YouTube now?
It's on YouTube right now.
So just go YouTube Owen Smith?
Yeah, Get to Know Owen Smith in 7 Jokes, and it'll come up on YouTube.
Oh, I'm going to go do that as soon as
And it's a fun little 7 bits over like the course of my career that it's my appearance on Conan, my appearance on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, some clips from my iPhone special, and some and a clip from the Laugh Mob laughing. But it moves, and it's like I'm like, oh man, it's a fun thing, and it also I see myself at different weights. Oh, I gotta work out, I gotta start eating better, and but it's inspiring me to keep creating, because the one thing about this craft, acting, stand up, writing, the more you do it, the better you become. But you just have to be willing to show up and keep doing it, you know.
And you got to take the no's.
Man, it's so many no's.
But, in our businesses, there's probably 50, 60 no's to every yes.
Every yes. That's so true.
So, everybody listening should remember this wasn't easy for you, man.
No, man. No, man.
This is a labor of love, and we all have to pay the price to get where we're going.
Yeah.
Humility, relationships,
a long way.
Discipline, and homework.
Speaking of humility, one time I was writing on a show, and the main person, they didn't have humility, and it made me very sad because I was like, you could be great,
right?
But yeah.
Well, the problem with the lack of humility is they take it away from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not gracious by nature.
Yeah.
It always has to focus upon them
and it's
stuff.
coming from something else, but it's like right here in this moment, man, if you had a little humility, your show wouldn't get canceled. Like I was like, I know your show's and it got canceled.
Yeah, well, there you go. Who wants to work with somebody like that?
I know.
There's a lot of great talent out there. Nobody says, screw that, I'm not going down that road again.
Yeah.
Then you want to work with them.
That's true.
Okay, when we met 6-8 months ago, we did a pilot together.
Yes.
And we were sitting together.
Yeah.
And in that pilot, you told me a story. I'm going to make you tell the story again because I love it so much. But I have an end to your end to the story. Yes,
okay.
that I don't think you know.
I don't know this.
Okay, so when Owen goes to Starbucks,
yes.
And that's where I end and you take over.
Okay, well, Starbucks, they can't give you your coffee unless you give them a name. And sometimes it'll just be me in there. I'm like, it's just me, man. Just, my order. So what I like to do, because Owen is a Welsh name, it's a white name, I like to give them a really black name. It's enjoyment for me, and, so whenever they go name, I go LeDemartius.
LeDemartius.
And I just look at them with a straight face like this. And they all have the same reaction. They go, oh, okay, how do you spell that? And then I go, here we go. L.
So you're a bit indignant.
Yeah, I'm extremely indignant. Like, L, apostrophe, DeMartius. Like that.
So they're writing this on the cup, as you're saying.
Writing it on the cup. And one time it backfires on me because I paid with a credit card. And the Starbucks, the chip reader wasn't working. So she was about to swipe it, but she looked at the name, and she goes, LeDemartius, is it? Yeah, that's me. What's up? She goes, do you have an ID? So that's when I realized the name of my card does not
was
say
it DeMartius?
No, it says Owen Smith. So I still tried to stay indignant, and I go, oh, here we go. You for real? You going to ask a black man for his ID after everything Starbucks just went through? Didn't y'all just have diversity training? Like, what's up? And she goes, I'm black. Yes, I need to see something.
So you got busted.
Got busted. And so she said the best thing. She looks at my card, my ID, and my credit card, and she just goes, if you're going to be an asshole, have cash.
Okay, so Owen tells me this story.
Yes.
The camera's shut down. The set is over. We walk into the production office together.
Okay.
I sit down in my chair, and next to my coffee cup from Starbucks is your cup from Starbucks. And son of a gun, I couldn't believe it. On the side of the cup, it said LeDemartius. So this wasn't a comedy routine. No, this was a real story.
I really do it.
At that moment, I fell in love with you, man. I thought that was the greatest. That you're telling me this stuff on camera, and I walked in, and there it was right before my eyes. That's a great story.
Thank you. Yeah.
Buddy, this has been a pleasure.
Thanks, man. I bought another cup for you. I bought another one that says LeDemartius on it.
So anybody who's listening, I'm going to take a picture of my DeMartius cup. I'm going to put that online. Owen and I will take a picture of it together. We'll post it online. And it's a great story. I wanted Owen to be here today because I so respect him as a man. His discipline growing up, his passion, humility, relationships.
Yeah.
You're just a solid, good guy.
Thanks, John. Thanks, man. It feels good. It feels good to be recognized.
And people support you in this business because you are just a great guy.
Yeah, I do feel that, and I love that. And so hopefully we can get this next chapter going.
Yep.
I want my kid to feel not to worry about anything.
Well, you got a brother here. Anything I can do to help you, man. I'm always there for you, Owen.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Love it, man. Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
If you love my No Excuses podcast, hit subscribe at Apple Podcasts, go to podcastone.com or the Podcast One app, and you'll get your new episodes every Tuesday morning.